True testimonies on this platform reveal. In God's love, forever bright. True testimonies on this platform revealed. In His love or gratitude, sealed.
Hey, what's up? This is Just Jessica Ville. Welcome back to TTU TV. Listen, I've been busy. We haven't been on this past week. We've been busy doing the work of the Lord in different areas of our life. We are back. We're come to bring this to a close. We have come to bring this to a close. We're trying to wrap up these episodes. There's no promise that it's going to be sooner than later. We're trying to make it sooner because God has assigned us to do other things. But today, we're going to talk about something so mind-blowing, right? Because we knew it was talking about why would God allow Trump to do all that he did? He came, messed some stuff up, taking some things up, woke us up, got our attention, and we like, where did this come from? And is it my God doing this? We all had that question. I mean, I knew it was God doing it, but it don't feel good, right? It don't feel good. But what we do realize is our toughest challenges in our life builds us up to become stronger. It makes us better people. It makes us Teflon, right? Where nothing can phase us, right? When we focus and we know what we want to do, we know where we're going, we keep that flow and nothing bothers us. So it doesn't matter what they take from us, doesn't matter what they do. We know how to persevere, right? We know how to get it out the mud, right? If we get to the mud, we know how to get it out the mud, right? So today we're on episode 6 of the Trump effect, right? And we're going to talk a little more and go a little deeper about when the merchants become princes, as it declares in the Bible, where it talks about it in Isaiah 23, where God was speaking about the merchants in Babylon. And so we're going to bring it together today to give you a deeper insight on what's really going on, right? What do you mean when merchants become princes? What is a prince, right? It's a nation. It's a whole nation, right? It's the government. But why would the merchants, right, become princes, right? For power. Short answer. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
The Trump effect. Kingdom versus culture. In a nation once united by liberty, now divided by loyalty, a storm grows beneath the surface. Following the Israeli 2024 election, the world watches as the weight of one man's return shakes systems, steers nations, and sparks spiritual warfare in the heart of America. This isn't just politics, this is kingdom versus culture, truth against deception, faith in the fire of controversy. Welcome to the Trump effect, kingdom versus culture, where we decode the aftermath, expose the agendas, and uncover what heaven is saying, and the world is shouting.
Listen, don't shout, right? Don't lose your mind. Don't get anxiety. Don't panic. We came to bring the pieces together, right? So episode 6 is about, like I said, when the merchants become princes, and we're talking of part 2, but we're speaking more of the rise of the thinking market, which is AI, right? And the merchants in global dominion, right? And if you are a Christian, you know the Bible said that we shall have dominion, right? But we see that this rise of AI and the merchants, because it's the merchants behind the agenda of AI rising, right? That it's become expanded. It's more than the norm, and it's starting to become our norm. So many people would say, okay, well, what's wrong with that? But if you don't have the mind of God, right, then you won't be able to see where the issue comes in. But those who have a relationship with God, they have intimacy with God, they have communion with God, we exchange thoughts, right? Our thoughts for God's thoughts in any form of relationship. That's how it works, right? Where souls are intertwined. In this case, we are in sync with our Creator, with God. And so He does not like that. And we're going to get into why, right? Does AI benefit us? Yes, but too much AI is where God draws the line. And you will probably wonder why. So in the beginning, we really had this question, right? Why would God allow Trump to do all of this? Well, Trump has been used to shake up, right? To shake up. Yes, he has created laws that runs in our favor, right? We got some tax laws. He stopped the whole mandate of COVID vaccines in order to have employment, right? We got some homeowners things that homeowner laws that works in our favor. There's so much, but in the beginning, I just knew when God gave me this dream that the Republicans create laws. The Democrats are still fighting for the respect, right? Or the application of the laws that they done already made, because it's like we're fighting for our lives. We're fighting for our rights. But Republicans can declare a thing, right? Create a law and then come into effect really quick. So that's one thing that I learned about this whole political arena. But God does intend for the scriptures to come alive. And it doesn't matter, right? What the cost is. The sacrifice is for the heavenly kingdom. And what the heavenly kingdom does on earth always works in favor of God's children, right? Because we are his children. We are his creation, right? We are his legacy. We are God's legacy. And so whatever the heavens come into agreement with, is whatever God says. And whatever God says, he sees it as being good. So I knew Trump had to become president. I knew that whatever Trump does, God is behind him on the fact. So I just knew that Trump can bring change. And the change was necessary because what I did know, the economic world reform was the beginning process of the New World Order. And so that's what my last podcast was about. How has Trump fulfilled the will of God? By causing intimidation to the world economic reform, causing intimidation to the stakeholders and the shareholders and those who fund the world because of their agenda in the New World Order. He shook it up. It's not stable. He's that one player that's like, yeah, I'm here and I'm playing with y'all, but I'm playing for my own self. I'm not playing for y'all. And so, God does that. And he does that to break up what we call familiar spirits, familiarity. They were familiar with having power and control in the government. And Trump was familiar with having war tactics, right? Is Trump perfect? No. Is he a saint? No. But God is using him. Are any of us perfect saints? Are any of us perfect? No. Right? And so God is using him to bring the laws into fulfillment. The scriptures must come alive. When Jesus asked God about drinking the cup of suffering, and he was like, is there any other way, God? And God said, no. He said, well, nevertheless, I got to do what I got to do because the scriptures must come alive. And so we're going to get into, this is the meat towards the ending of why did God decide for his timeline to flourish in full effect right now about the return of Christ. We're going deeper. And of course, I got my daughter with me. You know what I mean? I love my spiritual daughter, Brianna. I love all my spiritual kids because it's like they're a piece of me. Like they got a piece of my personality, a piece of, my gifts, anything. It's just like it reminds me of me. And God called me to impart into their lives. And so I am grateful and I'm honored for that. And so I'm going to bring Brianna to the stage, y'all. Listen, if you got any type of love, right, for humanity, give my spiritual daughter an applause. Give her an applause. Come on. Because she has such a good heart. I love her. She be helping me out, y'all. She be down for the, I'm from the hood, like, be down for the dipset. Yeah, as long as the descriptions, she down. She like, let's get it done. And so I love her. But yeah, so we're, right. I didn't stand, clock that T. And so, yeah. And so we're going to go a little deeper. So the first thing we got to talk about is, right, what's the biblical identity of the merchants, right, becoming princes? So who are the merchants? Right? The merchants are the stakeholders, the shareholders, the secret societies who have power and influence. That is what matters to God. Why? Because of the influence. because of their amount of influence. Influence is what shaped the minds of the world today. If you have more culture, and which is the reason why the stakeholders and the shareholders or the merchants, right, the business owners, those who have capital, has the most money in the world. The reason why God has an issue with them, and as it states in Isaiah 23, is because they decided to build, govern, and have power separated from God. It's like, I'm gonna do my own thing and I'm gonna have power. And I'm gonna do my own thing and I'm gonna build. And God is like, no, I'm the key holder of prosperity. Yeah, the enemy do give you prosperity if you sell your soul to him, but ultimately Satan mimics what God does. So if you ain't going to God to get it, it's not gonna last. But God has drawn the line. So how does the key holders, the stakeholders, I keep saying key holders are really like gatekeepers. They open the gate. They provide passage for, and this is a Christian, a biblical principle. Gateholders, and I keep saying key holders, but gateholders, they are responsible to govern the gates, and the gates allow or keep out, right? So they make way or they reject those who get prosperity or those who get open doors in their destiny, open doors in their assignments, open doors in their knowledge, right? Of the heavenly kingdom and how God operates, right? They are gatekeepers. So how it works, how God broke it down to me, how it works is the anointed, God builds them up to be gatekeepers, right? So the anointed have a relationship with God, they learn God's ways, they learn God, and then God give them wealth. It doesn't matter what type of wealth. It could be wealth of wisdom, it could be financial wealth, it could be anything that gets you into your destiny. And when God sends a person to you, you have to be the judge of who's worthy of that blessing, right? Because everybody has to be processed, right? You know, when we say trust the process, everybody got to be processed. So they're the ones that determine whether it's, you know, you are to get the blessing or not, right? Because God has to protect his glory. He has to protect his presence. And so he makes us responsible. And so the same way the government acts, they decide who, you know, get the finances or who get the good food, right? Who don't, right? They can put the poor food that has most chemicals in the hoods and put all the good food that has been cleaned and washed good and less chemicals in it inside of the bougie areas. So a lot of little things like that goes on. You got health insurance, give you good medicine. Some health insurance give you generic medicine. It's not really that good, and so forth, right? We ain't gonna get into that. Y'all already know. Everybody knows this part. But they be gatekeeping. And so that is the problem. So we're going to look at this here. This is a graph that shows you about the funding, who funds the economy. And now this is something that we know, but at the same token, we don't really pay like full attention to it, right? So who funds the United States and how does the economy operate? This is something that's really important because some people don't know how to rise in, you know, businesses, right? When they need funding for businesses and they don't know how to get a house and keep the house and, you know, pay the taxes. And, you know, there's programs to help you and it's all types of things. But if you don't know somebody that knows somebody, if you don't have the resources, then you will be ignorant of this type of thing. That's like knowledge and understanding that people can also gatekeep. So we were talking about the World Economic Reform. We were talking about that. I don't know if you got that in the last message. The people who is come up with the New World Order, their plan for the New World Order is with stakeholders and shareholders by this young man, Klaus, who you see on the screen. And it started back in COVID-19 when they came out with, okay, we're going to reform, right? We're going to do a New World Order. So we have spoken about this and we spoke about who is in the World Economic Forum. You can look it up. I have a video. I may play it for you in a little bit. But right now we're talking about the order of how the world is funded. So who fund the world economy? You got the shareholders and the stakeholders, right? They fund the businesses and companies. And when they fund the businesses and the companies, they hire employees. They buy, you know, they make business contract with the suppliers, right? And they have projects, right? You have to go according to guidelines for whatever the business is. So like you start a business and they saying this the eye wash station and it's the hand wash policy, because we got to protect germs from the CDC and all of these things. CDC say this is the policy to protect you from germs and to make sure you don't contaminate the food or contaminate your eye. This is our way of keeping control on infections from spreading. Like if somebody come to work and they have an infection, it can spread, right? So this is the policies we got to do. So what we're talking about is the people that makes up the policies, right? We're talking about the people that puts everything together, the rules and the regulations at work, in the communities, and so forth. That's who the people that fund the world. They create the rules and regulations, right? So we're going down the line. So the consumers and the communities is who funds next. It goes down. It starts from them on down. Like they're at the top of the food chain, and then it goes down, right? So then you got us in our communities, right? We buy the goods, we use their services, right? And then we pay taxes, and our taxes goes into the government and, the federal government, state, we pay taxes. That's how the global economy is funded, right? We're in there, we be upset about our tax dollars, but we're at the bottom of the food chain. But those who sit at the top of the food chain, the stakeholders and the shareholders, are the ones who supplies the companies and the businesses from the beginning. And so when we understand that, we understand their agenda for the New World Order. And it helps us to understand where we are heading and why. And so I'll go ahead and play this for you right now. But this video is a little long. But I'm going to play it for you for those who don't remember. This episode is going to be a lot of illustrations, a lot of show and tells, because that's one thing I love to do, because some people learn differently.
It is my
US, there's something we're not being told about the upcoming election.
It's a funeral of shareholder capitalism, and it's a birth of stakeholder capitalism.
Led by this man, the Democratic Party are discreetly and undemocratically transitioning us away from free market capitalism to another political system called stakeholder capitalism. This short story begins with Klaus Schwab, the executive chairman of the World Economic Forum.
We are working closely together with governments from around the world, including all G20 countries.
His exclusive elite members, called stakeholders, include the heads of all G20 countries, from the US and UK to communist countries like China.
It is my distinct honor and great privilege to introduce His Excellency Xi Jinping. We should join hands and rise to the challenge.
Over the past 50 years, Schwab has been educating aspiring politicians.
Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
And placing them into positions of power.
What we are very proud of as a young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, is that we penetrate the cabinets.
After penetrating our cabinets, Schwab and his stakeholders have enacted a 10-year transition to a political system that Schwab designed.
I pioneered the stakeholder concept.
Called stakeholder capitalism.
Of stakeholder capitalism is finally becoming mainstream.
This single global authoritarian system provides the stakeholders unprecedented control over all people and the planet.
The Chinese model is certainly a very attractive model for quite a number of countries.
Promoted on the cover of Klaus Schwab's book, stakeholder capitalism's slogan is propagated by the heads of all G20 countries and other powerful stakeholders.
People and planet, people and planet.
Back in the US, stakeholder Kamala Harris has put stakeholder capitalism's diversity, equity and inclusion policies at the heart of her presidential campaign.
To put equity firmly at the center of our economic policy.
These inclusive ideas were weaponized by Mao for shifting China to communism. As a World Economic Forum stakeholder, Kamala has a
Stakeholder responsibility in accelerating the transition
to stakeholder capitalism by enacting Klaus Schwab's Marxist policies.
This is the best time for leaders to work jointly for the world to become more inclusive.
Reform is not possible.
If you've wondered what's causing these strange events, it's because we're witnessing a cultural revolution, a social movement manufactured by tyrants,
To create a stronger inclusiveness.
to drive a shift from the bottom up to a more inclusive political system.
You have been promoting the stakeholder concept.
They have to trust that the era will be inclusive for them.
Other US World Economic Forum stakeholders include Al Gore, Anthony Fauci, and Bill Gates, as well as the heads of large media companies such as CNBC.
It's a race against time to keep stakeholder capitalism on track in 2023.
They've been indoctrinating us to believe narratives about them acquiring totalitarian authority are dangerous right-wing conspiracy theories.
Conspiracy theories are coming fast and furious. Can you explain how the Great Reset conspiracy started?
I see the need for a great reset.
This is a time for a great reset.
Reset the ways in which we live.
As well as manipulating us with propaganda, the stakeholders have been cancelling and censoring anyone who shares the truth.
We have all been subjected to the most powerful, coordinated, globally harmonized, military-grade propaganda campaign in the history of the Western world.
ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, and CNN, the mainstream media has joined this systemic attack on democracy.
To discover how stakeholder capitalism works, Schwab's full plan for transitioning us, and what we can do about it, watch my feature documentary series, Stakeholder Capitalism, for free at yellow.forum.
Okay.
So I'm referencing back to what Aaron was saying in the last two streams. And so we have the shareholders and the stakeholders. So with the shareholders, again, as Jess has mentioned, these are people who have investments that goes into different businesses. So let's just think Mark Zuckerberg, for example, he owns Instagram, Meta. So with him owning Meta, he does have different stakeholders. So maybe some employees that have different employees, so on and so forth, that also invest into Meta, which is the business and company. So with Meta, we know Meta is Instagram and Facebook. So you need employees to help out with Instagram and Facebook, whether it be the engineering side to the marketing side or whatever the case is. It is digital. So you're going to need some type of supplies to make sure that it is running into its fullest capacity digitally. And they also may have other projects, whatever those projects are, right? So then once all of that comes together, then it is pushed out into the consumer, and its communities, which is what we see in our Google. I'm not an Android girly. I'm an Apple girl. So I'm going to say the App Store. I don't know the Android store, but you know what I mean. You can go into your App Store and you can download Facebook and Instagram. And that's how we are actually utilizing it as consumers, quote unquote, or users. From that point forward, of course, the business has to pay business taxes. They have to pay taxes on behalf of the employees. The employees that work there also has to pay taxes as well to the government. That's also how the government is being funded. Or if there's anything that that consumer is purchasing through Meta, they have to pay taxes on that very thing as well. That is how these governments are getting their bread. That's when they talk about the debt, like the national debt. That's a big thing because it's like, hey, a lot of us are, having a lot of money coming out of our checks and we still in debt. Like, what's going on here? So when you have big companies like Meta, Google, Apple, Nike, JP Morgan, Chase, all of these different things, all of these different businesses, they are essentially, with their capital, they're bringing in equity. They're bringing in money, which is helping funding the government. So when you have WEF, World Economic Forum, if this is stakeholder focused, then this means, hey, we're going to essentially, for lack of better words, put more power back into, they said, the people, the planet, and technology. But you can also think of it like a business. Because the World Economic Forum has partners. It's on their website. There's a whole PDF where you can see their partners all the way to 2013 to 2025. So in all, when you have these partners, these businesses like Meta, for example, if they're bringing in equity to the government, it is not asinine to think, hey, if this works for the US, because the US has some US based companies that's bringing in equity. I'm sure China has some businesses that's bringing in equity. I'm sure Russia, or I don't know, I'm just throwing out all of it was the G20 countries, all of these countries coming together, essentially putting the power back into the business's hand. And this goes back to what Aaron was talking about. Like, that's what he was talking about, with the banks having investments, with the war, and yeah. So it kind of.
But this is also right. But this is also, I want to point out two things. This is also why God, since COVID, has been speaking to the churches about creating wealth. That we have to now utilize the skill sets that He gave us to generate wealth and to build legacies, because now we have to become stakeholders. Right? We have to become those that own businesses and etc. Right? And we have to become shareholders. We have to become just like them in order to have equity for real. Because they're saying equity, but at the same token, and they're saying equality, but at the same token, they have a secret society. It's only going to be what they determine, right? Just like she said, oh, they got to trust us. How can we trust them, right, if they hide in their hand? Right? They're throwing a stone, but they're hiding their hand. Right? They put laws in place where we got limitations and hindrances, but they're hiding their hand as if we don't know. Another thing I want to point out is on the chart, consumers and communities, right, are those who buy goods and we use the services. And that's how we put the money back into the government's hands, right? But they want to skip over us when it comes to having a say. Just like with the elections, they cheating in the elections, they cheating in the polls, they doing all this. They want to skip over us with having a say so about how we live. So this is the control factor that I spoke of. So in the Bible, you could look up in the Bible who were the merchants. Biblically, who were the merchants? So here's some scriptures that talks about the merchants, right? Originally, how God designed it was He give you a skill set to create goods, and we trade and we share, right? We barter. And they taking advantage of that. So you got Proverbs 31, where God's speaking of, we know Proverbs 31 woman is a virtuous woman, right? A woman with many talents, many gifts, right? Good head on her shoulders, and definitely put God first in her life. It says in the NLT version, it says she makes high quality clothing and sell it to merchants. Yeah, that's originally how God designed it. But we know the enemy, he mimics what God does. And from now, China has been creating everything that we use in the US. China's already chipped up. They already got chips. They're already using chips for identity, for their ID cards, to buy things in the store. China's already doing that. They've been doing it. I've been sharing videos on my YouTube for years, but they get taken down, just like the video said, because they've been flagging everything for anybody that shares the truth. Right? Now, this shows value in creation, but it's supposed to lead back to God. That's not how they're doing in the US. Everything they're doing outside of God's honor. Hosea 12:7, it says, NLT version, merchants cheat using dishonest skills and love to take advantage of others. Dishonest skills. That's exactly what they're doing. Again, not honoring God. So these are the merchants, right? They destroyed the trust when it comes to the marketplace. And some churches is doing this too. Just not gonna lie. I can't even tell the truth. What God told me to tell. Jesus turned over the table because the trust was destroyed, and the devotion and honoring God just came to tell the truth. Don't shoot the messenger. Nehemiah 13:16. Foreign traders sold good in Jerusalem on the Sabbath, right? This shows tension between profit and social values. Right? This shows tension between profit and social values. The Sabbath is supposed to be about fellowship. Right? It's supposed to be about rest and fellowship. Why? Because those two things bring us closer to God. Rest clears our mind to be able to hear from God. Fellowship, we charge the atmosphere, we charge our faith with one another's faith. to be strong in faith. That's what fellowship is supposed to be about. So rooted in God. It's supposed to be about human dignity and rest, not about a prophet. Ezekiel 27:12-25, Tyre is described as a powerful global trading center connected to many nations in luxury goods. We talked about that. Ezekiel said the same thing that I said in Isaiah 23. When we came up and saw, when we were searching what God was telling me to search for, when he showed me Isaiah 23 in the spirit, and I had to go read it, and I came up with the understanding where merchants became princes. That's the understanding that I got, and how they were abusing their position of power. And that's why God was saying, this is why all of these wars is going on with other countries, because we trade with them. We're supposed to trade with them, trade goods that create wealth, and they're taking advantage. They're being dishonest. It's a lot going on. So Trump had to shake up the familiarity. He had to shake up the norm. So the global trade can enrich nations, but pride makes community fragile. So they can do all of this back and forth, but their pride and excess makes communities fragile, right? It's the same thing dealing with distrust. You did it to them, what makes you think you can do it to me? So Revelation 18:11, merchants mourn because no one buys the luxury goods anymore. This is where we're headed, including items gained through human exploitation. So if we answer the call, we receive what God is saying about cry out, pray, right? Intercede for the earth, right? Those called by my name will humble themselves and pray, right? If we do these things, that comes with us being vulnerability. That comes with us being naked before God. That means being in honesty and in truth, in spirit and in truth, which holds accountability for our actions, for our sins, which the world wants to run away because they want to live in culture. They don't want to go to God about their sins. But we're supposed to go to God and get cleansed, get washed, right? And when we do that, the Lord said that he would go to the Father and he will heal the land. But meaning he will intercede for you. He will act as your lawyer. He will plead your case. When you come with your sins to the Lord in honesty and truth, naked before him, in vulnerability with a contrite heart, he will take your case to God and plead your case. He will be your lawyer. And so we do these things, the earth will be healed, right? But it also gives us power. How does it give us power? Because we are redeemed, right? We are sanctified, we're purified, we're washed and cleansed with the blood. We stand in our authority. And these physical things will no longer have dominion over us, over our consciousness, over our mindset. The familiarity, if it becomes no more familiar, it won't faze us because we have God. There's a certain lifestyle that you live. There's a certain well that you drink from. Just like the Lord said to the Samaritan woman, drink from this well right here. You're going to be thirsty, but you drink from the everlasting well. The everlasting well is the eternal well. Well of Jesus Christ now. You ain't going to be thirsty no more. He's going to quench your thirst. And that's the truth. And wonder how people change just like that, because they got that well that Jesus was over there pouring cups. And we came into the truth. We woke up. We are awake. And so when you do that, Revelation 18, because we're in Revelation, everything we preached about, everything we talked about in this podcast came from Revelation. We just started from the top and brought it to the end. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Revelation 18. I'm going to read it again. Merchants mourned. They were crying. They were sad. They were discouraged. Because no one buys their luxury goods anymore, including items gained through human exploitation. This will be the fall of Babylon. When we rise with the Lord, we pray, come into relationship with him authentically in spirit and in truth, Babylon will fall. So the collapse of the consumer-driven global economy will be complete. That's when Babylon falls, when we repent. So I ain't gonna go into that, but there's a lot of suffering because there's a lot of warfare because you don't understand the affliction. Affliction in your body means God is in you, he's fighting for you. The devil's trying to keep you. That's where affliction comes. That's what warfare is. Right? So economies that are built on greed and exploitation eventually fall. If you build an economy, a nation, an empire without God, aside from God, it'll fall. Just like God gave me this prophecy years ago. But I really wasn't ready for all of this that God had to show me then. It took years, 6 years, 5, 6 years for me to be prepared for this full message. Okay? Now we're going to go forward. But I don't know if we'll be able to do it in this one episode. We're going to go forward. She said we could, though. She said we could. Bree said we can make it through. So the key points about the global trade system, right, represents an international economic order driven by greed, excess, and injustice. Merchants, kings, and shipmasters all profit from it. So luxury built on exploitation wealth comes at the expense of nations. It comes at our expense, right? The poor and even human lives, bodies and souls of men. Revelation 18 and 13. So sudden collapse. Economic power falls in 1 hour. Of course, that hour is cosmic hour. It's not in Carl time. It's not Carl's time is God's timing. It's not like literally 1 hour. And that is the showing of divine judgment where it overrides human systems, and economic war is swift, not gradual. And it talks about this in the book of Revelation, where the separation command, God commands us to separate his people when he says, come out of her, come out of the world. Economic allegiance is coming out of the world. Economic allegiance is a spiritual issue. It's a spiritual issue. When I first heard about this, I was aware of the bio war. These are the power heads attempting to maintain God's power aside from God. Yes, while I was talking about the Tower of Babel, God talked about this. I talked about this in my last series with me and Aaron, and I spoke about it in the first 1 or 2 episodes. Right? The political power war, economic and bio war. When I first heard about this, it was the bio war that got my attention when God had showed me about, he highlighted to me, it was a scientist, a black guy, scientist who was gay, right? They killed him, but the report said that he committed suicide because he was gay. But if he was a black successful scientist in this generation, being gay is no shame or guilt. And he was young. He's probably like in his late 20s, early 30s. And he showed up dead. And the Holy Spirit said to me in my inner knowing, he said, they killed him. The headlines is lying. Then there was another one. So I heard the Lord left alone, nothing I could do about it. I mourned. I did mourn. Because when you're spiritually sensitive and you feel the Holy Spirit, whatever God feels, you're going to feel. So I was like, I mourned. I was really sad. And I, at that time, I hated to see death. Anything dealing with death. Any, RIPs or whatever. I don't want to see none of that because I'm spiritually sensitive. So instantly I go into sadness. It's just like instantly. And so I didn't want to see that. And then I see this post about Judy Mekovich, who was a scientist that was exposing COVID-19. And so I started watching her videos. She started doing interviews. That lets me know that they were lying. So back then, I was able to see so much about Judy Mekovich. I was able to see mad interviews, mad articles. She talked about how they arrested her, froze her bank accounts, all her assets and everything, fired her from a job. She was working for the CDC as a scientist, and she was exposing them. Now today, I can't find that many articles. The articles I see about her talks about how she fake, how she was lying. They're trying to control the narrative. It's always been like this. She's even wrote a book. Look her up, Judy Mekovich, where she was talking about how COVID was not by chance. She was saying how it was a plandemic, not a pandemic. She was going in. Like Miss Judy was going in. And when she started to speak out was when they started to basically cast her. And so she started speaking in like secret societies, like doing interviews and stuff like that. but not doing public appearances because she went into hiding. But Judy Makovich. So that was the beginning when I first originally saw anything dealing with my assignment. And so that's when I understood the bio war, right? We were going through a bio war. And then God started to bring to me, and this is what the Bible speaks about in the book of Revelation. You know, it talks about horses being released, the angels being released, the angels doing certain things. And I'm not going to go into that because then I got to break it all down. But paraphrasing helps me get to my main point because we're 47 minutes in. And so we were talking about all of these things that gave and showed signs of Jesus' return. Then God started walking me down all of these different books in the Bible that gave us the understanding and the revelation of God's perspective and how he saw injustice in the earth. So the merchants are going to mourn when we rise up, right? And this will expose their misplaced values, and they shall repent. Even the Bible talks about the merchants are going to turn on the beast, right? So basically, whoever was using them, they're going to turn on it. So like, it's the same thing with Jezebel, spirit of Jezebel, because that's what happens, because Jezebel is a spirit of narcissism and control. So that's really what's ultimately at work here. And so what happened was the people Jezebel was using, they got tired of her and they turned on her, and that's how she died. And when she died, you know, her bones were thrown out the window, and, you know, all this good stuff. But, and again, I'm paraphrasing because I don't want to go down that, because I'm passionate about all my work for the Lord, and I have to explain every little bit, and I'm not gonna be able to get to, I don't even know if we're gonna get to the other illustrations. But yeah, the Lord is gracious. And so, yes, God, he warns us against commercial pride, right? That's what he talks about in Isaiah 23, commercial pride. He doesn't have a problem with the stakeholders and the shareholders. The problem is their pride, right? Doing it without God. And this is going to lead us to a world of AI. So that's what I really wanted to talk about. And this is God's dividing line, meaning this is his statutes. This is where he's like, this is the icing on the cake right here. You can read about it in Matthew 13, 45 and 46, Revelation 18 and 3, Revelation 17 through 18. So we're going to go into a world, right, that is operating fully in AI. Why do they want to have a new world order? How does the government want to maintain control over us? So we're going to watch this clip, and what does it look like in a world, right? So anything that the enemy does and the forces that be, they have to show it to us, present it to us, because we got to come into agreement with it, right? Because they are spirits. So spirits need vessels to come into agreement, and that is how it manifests on the earth. And so in the movies, the same thing with God. God uses his prophets to declare a thing in the spirit realm, and the prophets has to declare it in the earth. That's how God manifests his glory in the earth.
He's been identified on the Metro. The train makes 2 stops at 20th and 33rd.
Send units to each location.
Never make 20th.
Have faith.
Hey, Fletch.
Hey, John.
That was a rough landing.
Yeah.
You have to work on that.
That's that old shit knee of mine.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Hey, don't do this. John, don't run.
You don't have to chase me.
You don't have to run.
Everybody runs, Fletch.
You know we'll catch you.
Everybody runs.
Look, it doesn't have to be like this, John.
Everybody runs.
Get your 6 sticks ready.
Everybody runs, Fletch.
Slow down, Chief. Just take it easy.
No sudden moves, Chief.
John, it's okay.
Fletch.
Easy does it, Chief.
Got a grip? Got a grip.
Fletcher, get him off me.
If I'm understanding you correctly, the power heads maintain their power aside from God through political, economic, and biowar. Through the political power, it's more so through the people who are in charge of different policies, in charge of laws, so on and so forth, that can impact the economy. Once it impacts the economy, it impacts the production and distribution of different goods, services, resources, and even the dollar. That's why it's like a lot of uproar about the dollar being worth less, especially after the announcement, I forget, years ago when they were talking about, it was Trump that brought up the national debt, which can overall affect the psyche of Americans, where we're speaking to Americans right now. So like the decision making, the different choices that we'll make, so on and so forth. But the bio war, to your point, is so impactful because that plays a big role in your health. So once your health is impacted, then your psyche, your decision making is all, I don't want to say out of whack, but you're going to think differently. I'll say that.
Clouded.
Yes. So with COVID, when you were mentioning Judy Mekovitz and how she was talking about how it's a pandemic, it was because, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but I was in cosmetology school and I remember it just being talk like, yeah, they said it's a virus and nothing major about it. And then the next day they were like, oh, stay home. That stay home turned into 2 weeks. That 2 weeks turned into months, and then that started affecting the economy. So think about it. A lot of those businesses, entrepreneurs were making money. But when we're talking about big corporations, they were overall losing money. What were they doing trying to maintain that money? Work from home, hybrid schedules, all of those different things. But how does that impact or have them maintain power? If I can control the amount of people, hypothetically speaking, if I can control the amount of people, the population,
that is here in the US, then that means the amount of resources, products, goods, money, that can be controlled as well. When somebody is dealing with their health, then that's going to affect the dollar. That's going to affect the amount of medicine, resources that they're going to need. So,
you know what? We about to go on to the next episode because we need to pick up on this. We gonna, you know what? Listen, we're gonna wrap this up. Listen, if you want the next illustration, if you want to get into it, because we about to get into it.
Yeah, it's getting good.
Watch episode 7, because we about to end this one and we about to hurry up and start the next one and go straight into it because we got so much to talk about. Okay, I don't even know. Listen, we're gonna do it again for the daughter, because we just be we be talking offline, getting it together, but once I get the flowing, my mind get the going, and I be trying to get the hour. I'm trying to keep it in an hour. It don't work like that. It just, listen, we gonna end this one. We going to the next one. Thank y'all for tuning into 3CUTP. Stick around for episode 7. It's going to be either Wednesday or Saturday. So whatever day you see this, if it's Wednesday, it's going to be Saturday. If you see this Saturday, it's going to be Wednesday. Listen, don't go nowhere. Just listen. Just stick around, because we got to finish the assignment until it's done. Don't get mad at the messenger. Take it up with God.